In this video, we're going to be taking a look at creating a design similar to the baseball mom design from the very beginning to the very bitter end. Now, this design is not a complicated design, but you do have to kind of know what you're doing, kind of know how you would actually put this design on a shirt so you know how to go about actually creating the artwork for this design. So we have the baseball mom already done, and I've done a similar basketball mom. So now we'll move on to softball mom. Now we might cheat a little bit because we have some of the elements already created, but I just want to give you a good understanding of how we go about creating this and some really nifty things that are kind of off the beaten path a little bit in regards to CorelDRAW, but I think it's important for you to know about because it is so powerful. If there, and I don't know every single design program out there as well as I do CorelDRAW, but there are some super fantastic things that I think are only exclusive here to CorelDRAW that I definitely want to share with you because they're make that whole design process so much easier. So first of all, what we're going to do, obviously, is we're going to type out our word softball. And the font that we're going to use, I'm going to use the font manager here in EasyStone just because I'm used to it. But the font that we're going to use is our impact font. So let me find our impact font. So there's our impact font. And then I'm going to show you something that I think is kind of special as it relates to CorelDRAW. What we're going to do is we're just going to draw out a rectangle using the CorelDRAW rectangle tool. And then we're going to go to our envelope tool, which is an amazing tool in and of itself. But when you switch over to the envelope tool, this toolbar changes. And we're going to choose this option right here in the middle for single arc mode. And then if we hold down our control key and click and drag, you can see how it happens where it gives us this type of arch. Whereas if we don't hold our control key, then it only moves one. And then if we hold down our alt key, you can see it does the same thing. But if we hold down the shift key, let's see here. Okay, we got to go back and click on that. If we hold down the shift key, see what happens? It actually pulls from both sides. Okay, so that's kind of cool in and of itself. So we'll go ahead and I might squish this down a little bit more. Something like that. Now, here's what's really kind of interesting. If we take our softball text and we click on the text to envelope tool here in EasyStone, it asks us to select a closed shape and then hit the escape key. And you can see once it's done that, now our word softball has taken on the same shape as we had used previously. Now here's where I think the special thing about CorelDRAW is. We've created this shape. We have baseball, now we have softball. But what if I wanted Mustangs or Tigers or volleyball or whatever I want? Here's what's really interesting is I can take this newly created shape and I can come in here to my envelope tool and notice this button, this magical button right here. It says I can add it as a preset. So when I add this as a preset, we'll go ahead and give it a name. I don't know. Let's just call it double arch. And we'll go ahead and hit save. When you add it as a preset, we could delete that. Now down the road, I want to create something. So let me just come in here. I know I'm going to do volleyball at some point. Or I'll tell you what, let's do soccer. Because I had a request for soccer. So let's do soccer as our next one. Now here's what's neat. We can set that to impact. Same way. But now what we can do is we can apply preset. So we go to our envelope tool. And you see our presets here. And look at double arch is a new option. And now you can see what the result is that you get. See, so now from here, we can kind of fine tune this a little bit. In other words, if I want to change the shape of my soccer, watch what I can do. I can select these nodes. I selected all three bottom ones and watch. Click and drag. Click and drag. And now you can see it looks more similar in style. So depending on the word that we're going to use, you know, you might want to manipulate that a little bit. And then the nice thing too is, remember, if we use this option, which is that single arc mode, if we hold down the shift key, we can still fine tune exactly how much you want. So you have your basic shape. You only have to create those shapes one time, and then you can use them over and over and over again. So isn't that quite powerful? Just a really neat feature that I don't know if it's necessarily exclusive to CorelDRAW, but it is a really neat feature that we have available to us in CorelDRAW. So now we have our softball mom here. What we're going to do is we're going to set the overall width, and I set my overall width at 9 inches. You can set it to whatever you want, obviously. Now for the mom part of the text, what we used, let's just go ahead and type out mom. What we used was brush script. So we can just come in here, type out the first few letters, and there's brush script, and we can resize it, position it. I'd probably give it a different color just so we can see how it interacts with softball. And then again, we can place it wherever we want to. I want to line these up left to right. So I have mom selected. I'll hold my shift key and select softball, and then C. There's certain keyboard shortcuts you're going to want to learn all the time. C will center everything left to right. E will center everything top to bottom, which in this case obviously we don't want. So let's just move that back down into place here. So I just want to kind of point out some of those little keyboard shortcuts. All right, so now the next thing we need to do is we need to apply some contours or some offsets. And this is another amazing tool, definitely not exclusive to CorelDRAW, but it is, I think, probably one of the easiest tools in comparison to some of the other programs. It's really easy to use. So here we're going to grab our contour tool, and all we have to do is just click and drag on softball, and you see that little blue outline that appears? That's all we have to do. You could just click and drag that to the inside, to the outside, however much offset you want to have. And I think we'll just do something like that. Okay. Now, obviously, we're not concerned about color at this point. We just wanted to create that initial offset. Then we're going to right-click and choose Break Contour Group Apart. Okay. And then we want to do something similar to mom. Now, the amount of offset doesn't have to be the same. It could be. But we'll just, you know, whatever we think looks good. So you see, maybe we'll do something, maybe not as much. And again, we'll right-click, Break Contour Group Apart, and there you go. So now we have softball mom. All right, so now the next thing we need to do is we need to create this baseball laces. And I wanted to show you how we did that. Now, obviously, because we already have it, we could just click and drag it down here. And if we wanted to manipulate this a little bit so this arch matched up with our softball a little bit more, you know, it wouldn't take us much to apply an envelope to it and get it looking the way we want it to. But what I want to do is I want to actually show you how we can go about creating this, you know, from scratch. So you can see what we've done here is we've just created this shape. Okay, so I just kind of used some different tools in CorelDRAW just to create and manipulate this shape. And let's see here. For this purpose, let's go ahead and let's go into our artistic media docker. So we'll go Dockers, make sure your artistic media docker is available. Now I already have mine open here, so you can see that there. So what we're going to do is we're going to save this as a new object sprayer. And let's call it Kev BB Stitch. Whatever you want to name it, just call it Kev BB Stitch for this example. All right, so that's going to save that as a new object sprayer. And so here's what we're going to do. We're just going to come in here, grab our 3-point curve tool, and I'm just going to kind of eyeball so that this curve is similar to softball. And then I am going to make this a bit smaller. And as you do that, it may change how the curve is, so we can flatten that out by just stretching it out. Okay, something like that. All right, so actually I decided, you know what? I decided I want it bigger now. So you can see how that kind of lays in there, and then we can fine tune it if we want to. So it lays right along that softball there. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to apply some stitches to this. So here in Artistic Media, if we scroll all the way down to the bottom, you can see we have this new, there's actually two of them because I had created it previously. But if I click on this one, you can see what it does. It just kind of adds these automatically. Now from here, you can change the size, which is pretty handy. So you can make it bigger. You can add more by changing the spacing. So as we change the spacing, you see that? We're adding more and more. So you can kind of manipulate it however you want to. Then there's some additional options here. Now watch this. Watch this angle of rotation. We can, and you see how all those stitches changed angle? And I'm really focused on this one. I want to get this one exactly the way I want it. So unfortunately, you can't look at it live. So you have to make your change, see what it looks like, come back in here, add a couple more degrees rotation, but you see how all these are? Now watch what happens when we make this small change. If we make this small change where it says relative to path, which is the rotation angle of rotation, watch what happens now. So now you can see that this is all kind of changed. And you could decide, you could even use this incremental value. So it starts out one way and then it incrementally goes over. So you can get those stitches looking just exactly like you want with all of those different options that are available to you. All right, so now once we've done all of that, we have our stitches pretty much the way we want to. We're going to right click on this and break our Artistic Media group apart. That original line reappears. So let's go ahead and give it a thickness. And then we're just going to nudge this line over a little bit. Something like that. We're going to convert that line to an object, which is this button right here. And then we're going to take all of these. These are still in a group. But we're going to take all of these and weld them as one. So if we look here in wireframe mode, you can see how our cutter would cut this. And then we'll go ahead and reposition this down here like so. If I want to have this perfectly at the right angle, we actually have a tool in EasyStone, which is on the Specialty tab called Set Angle, and I would click on that node and this node and say make that line perfectly horizontal. You can see it's close, but it's not perfect. So now we know that that's perfectly horizontal. And if we centered this, then it should, let's go ahead and center that up, should look pretty good. All right, so let's go ahead and make this red. And we'll move this down and we'll mirror it. And we'll move this up into place here. And we'll push this to the back, which is shift page down. And now what we can do is we can kind of fine tune Mom, how it interacts with our laces, how it interacts with softball. I don't really like how it's interacting at the moment because you see it's kind of blobby and whatnot. That will go away too if we change our outline color to something else, which because it won't be red, then it probably won't look as bad. But we kind of fine tune, decide, well, maybe we can make Mom bigger. That might be another option. Nothing wrong with making those changes at this point. So you just kind of have to decide how you want this all to interact. Maybe I like that right there. So we'll just do something like that for this example. All right. So now the tricky part. This is the trickiest part of the design. We have it basically laid out the way we need to. Now the tricky part of the design is setting up the trapping. If we're going to do an all glitter design like this, we have to create our artwork in a special way. If we look at Baseball Mom in wireframe mode, do you see everywhere where there's color on color, you can see there the laces are overlapping. You can see all these overlaps. that is what we call trapping. And that is kind of tricky to wrap your mind around. Sometimes I even get confused a little bit. But what we're going to do first of all is let's take a look at how mom interacts with our lacing. So what we need to do is we need this lacing. If I double click, do you see how the lacing, the outlines, are completely covered up by the pink contour of mom? So what we need is we need a slight overlap, but we don't need all of that overlap. So what we do is kind of a step-by-step process. So we take our top piece, which in this case is our pink contour. We're going to give it a contour to the inside 1 millimeter. So we just type in 1 mm and click on the inside button. This is inside, this is outside. So we click on inside and you can see that offset, and then we're going to right click, break contour group apart, and then we're going to take our red inside contour, hold our shift key, select our laces. I tell you what, before we even do that, I always like to work in stages. That way if I ever have to go back a stage, I can. So now we'll take red contour to the inside, our red laces, and trim. And now we can delete our red contour. So now when we double click on our laces, watch what happens here. See that outline right there? It stopped. So we have a little bit of overlap, but all of this that was in here is all gone now. And you can see we have little tiny remnants that we can come in and fine tune and delete, like this piece right here. I'd probably delete that piece. This piece right here we can delete. This little piece right here we'll delete. We got a little piece here. This little piece here, I'll go ahead and delete it. But so you see, we have that little bit of overlap, but not any more than what we really, really need. We got a little piece of overlap there. We'll go ahead and delete that. Okay? So now we kind of have that cleaned up. So if we look at our laces, you can kind of see what it looks like. And you can see that we have an extra little piece right there that we would not cut. So let's go ahead and double click our laces and get rid of it. And now you have a nice clean piece of artwork there as far as our laces go. Everything's going to overlap just a tiny little bit, but it'll be really good as far as actually being able to produce the design. So now the next thing we want to do is we'll take our pink and we'll trim our black softball text here where the two interact. So we're going to take this and our black softball text and trim that back. So now you can kind of see what that looks like. See how it's trimmed away there? So now what we're going to do is we're going to take our pink and our red contour and we're going to weld those two together. So now those become one. And let's change the color so we're not confused here. So you can kind of see how this is all coming together. Now there's still a bit more work to do because right now our black softball text is completely sitting on top of our blue contour. So what we need to do is grab our contour tool, click, we've already set it to 1 millimeter the first go around. So if we don't change it, we can just click on inside. It offsets 1 millimeter to the inside. We'll right click and break it apart. And then what we'll do is we'll take that and this and trim. And if we look now, you can see there's a hole in our contour. So we can delete that. And we need to do the exact same thing down here. So we're going to contour to the inside. We're going to right click, break it apart. We're going to select the red contour to the inside and our blue contour. And we are going to trim. And we're going to delete. Okay? So now if we look at what we're going to actually do, we're going to lay down, let's go ahead and combine these two together. So we will combine our two reds together. So we're going to lay down our red. Then we're going to line up our blue. So it lines up. You can see here, we can nudge it, get it all lined up just like so. And then we can put our softball mom text on top. And again, we're just going to line it up as well. And ta-da, there's our shirt. So it's pretty straightforward to do. So let's go ahead and delete all of this. And if we go into wireframe mode here, hopefully you can kind of see this. It's a bit difficult, I know, but you can see all these overlaps are perfect. See that overlap? All these overlaps are perfect. It looks a bit like a mess right now because everything's sitting on top of one another, but that little bit of overlap is necessary. So if we double click our blue, you can see how that is overlapping ever so slightly everywhere it needs to overlap. Okay. Now, this is not a technique that you learn overnight. So study the video a few times over to get a good understanding, but at least you have a step-by-step reference so you know how to create the artwork, first of all, and then set it up properly for doing multiple colors on top of one another. And even if you use glitter material, you'll have success here. So what we're going to do now is add a weed box around this. We go ahead and copy it over because I want to create a mock-up. So I'll go ahead and select our red text here. We'll open up our glitter fill and we'll make that red glitter. And then we're going to do, I think, silver. And then for softball, we'll do, I don't know, maybe light gold, whatever you want to do. I don't know which I like better, maybe gold. And then what you could do too is you can think about mixing. So maybe for softball, we'll do it in white, and maybe for mom, we'll just do in simple black or some other color. You know, whatever you want to do. You have complete flexibility. So here we're going to use white, regular HTV, and then glitter softball on top. Or, you know, like I said, whatever you want to do. I'm just giving you some ideas and some different options there. But you can see, looks like a really good design. Now we'll go ahead and add our watermark and our dimensions and all that monkey business, and there you go. Now we can export this out for our proof image for the website or whatever, and then we could go ahead and export out our vector file to get ready to cut this design out. So I know it's a lot to take in and a little bit of time. We spent about 20 minutes creating this design, so it didn't take us very long. But if you watch the video over a few times, I think you'll get a good understanding of how to properly prep your artwork when you're doing multiple colors that are sitting right on top of one another. And even if you use your glitter material, which we know we can't really overlay glitter on glitter. So by taking these extra steps to set up your artwork properly, you'll even be able to use glitter on glitter if that's what you choose to do. So maybe I'll switch that back over to silver. And yeah, it looks, you know, it looks pretty cool. So whatever you want to do there, but it gives you a good idea of how to get that artwork set up properly. Thanks for watching.